Welcome, IT changemakers, to the DEX Show with Tim Flower and Tom McGraw. Let's get into it.
Hello, changemakers. Greetings from an absolutely boiling hot day here in London. Hotter than Barbados, the newspapers are telling us. Now, it might be a winter time in Barbados. I couldn't tell you, but it is certainly hot, and we're not well suited for it. And wonderfully enough, we have a guest himself based in London for Tim and I to welcome. He's Midge Renganathan, head of IT service delivery for RPC. Midge, we've been trying to organize this for a few weeks now. It's great to finally welcome you to the show.
Thank you so much.
How you doing? How are you coping with the heat over there?
It is quite boiling actually, and I've actually got a bee inside my office as well, so I'm trying to keep an eye on that and make sure it doesn't attack me at the same time. But other than that, all is good.
Excellent. And is there the courage of having his camera on, which is something I'm not intentionally tempted by. But look, Midge, we've already had a good long conversation, and I absolutely loved hearing about your story. It was just so keen to get you on the show. And I mean, maybe just introduce yourself first of all in your current role, current specialism, and how we became connected.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm Midge Renganathan, so head of service delivery for RPC. Focusing a lot more on the customer experience. So I look after the front end support teams. That's your operational teams. And that's pretty much been my background. So I've been in the legal industry for about 25 years now. I've been in a few big law firms where I learned my experiences, and I moved to RPC about 5 years ago and became a Nextink partner around about 2 years ago. So we basically bought into Nextink and on a journey to improve our current customer experience. So that's kind of the background.
You certainly are, and we'll pick up on this chapter of the journey in a bit, Midge. But before we do, you've got a real journey. You've been on a real journey yourself, I would say. Your life story is something of a journey, and your career story, and it's I think it's somewhat unique, and I really loved listening to it last time we met. So I think begin for the listeners by telling us something about your upbringings and where that journey began.
Yeah, sure. It's taking me back now. So born in Sri Lanka, at a place called Ratnapura. So it's basically like a tea estates. So my childhood memories of going to school is walking down the tea estates and going to school and then climbing up the mountains to get back home. So my parents were pretty much a simple family. Not much on the money side of things, but certainly from the love side of things, it was quite big. My around the age of 5, my dad migrated over to England. So my mum pretty much brought up my brother and I, and we had some challenges there due to the Civil War. And due to the Civil War, we moved over to England when I was about 10. So prior to that, my lifestyle was in Sri Lanka, where we had a few challenges. Particular example is I remember one time when my mum had to wake my brother and I up to and take us to a place for safety, which was a next door to us, just to make sure that we were not being attacked. So these are some of the stories that basically I remember growing up. And when I got to about 10, my parents were worried about my brother and I's safety and decided to migrate over to England. So we moved here. Pretty much from scratch, and that's where my journey began.
Incredible. And what was that transition like?
Transition wise, a lot to tell you actually. Okay, so when we moved over, so we lived with a family member for a while. So I started to attend middle school. It was quite a not a great memory, to be honest with you, because starting middle school, you're new to the country, can't speak a word of English, no friends, so it took a while to fit in. I mean, I remember the times when I would be dreading the play times because just have to sit by myself because I've got no one else that would want to come and play with me. And often people would make fun out of me because I can't speak English, and they were kids as well, so how would they know better? Then we moved into a council accommodation, which was quite a rough area, to be honest. This was just a double bedroom, where they had a double bed and a bunk bed. So me and my brother were on the bunk bed and my parents on the double bed, and used to look out the window thinking, my God, what kind of life is this? Trapped in a room. Then I started high school. Things got a little bit better at high school because I managed to make some friends. Then we moved to another council accommodation, which was like a masonette flat. We had a bit more space, but it was a very rough area. So, pretty much would get mugged and attacked on a regular basis. And, it was just the norm. It just became the norm to me. One particular example, went for a bike ride into the park, and was attacked by this group of boys, and it attacked me quite badly where I couldn't even open my mouth or speak.
Oh my God.
And my biggest fear was not about how I get away from them. It's more about making sure my parents don't find out, because I don't want them to know and worry about us, because they were trying to make ends meet, and they were working full time just to make sure me and my brother had a decent life. Yeah, so it was quite a rough journey to start with, but as per everything else, it got better as time went on. But we went into high school. Managed to make some friends. And then get the roadmap going, and so on.
It must have been incredibly intimidating experience. What were your parents doing for a living when they first came here?
So my family is actually an educational background, to be honest with you. So it's very academic. So most of my
Right.
families are like doctors, accountants, and engineers. And unfortunately, my father was an accountant in Sri Lanka, and he found it quite difficult to practice when he came over here. And my mom and dad, basically done the bare minimum. So my mom was working at a factory to make much as possible to support us, and my dad would do the odd accountancy jobs, and equally working at different places to make sure that financially we are being looked after.
So, Midge, welcome to the show. We both, or all three of us, have been at our careers for quite some time now. Some of us longer than others, right, Tom?
It's all relative, Tim. It's all
It is. What I find myself doing, especially in parts of my career, like I've just experienced this year, traveling, getting to areas of the world that I've never been to, working with small, nimble teams, just starting to build out their operation, working with prospects that are just starting on a journey. All those things give me the passion and the energy that I need to continue. But I also look back at the early parts of my career. What was it that drove me back then when I was first starting out? So, in those early parts of your career, what were the parts that really, where you really found the most passion and energy to kind of continue down the path?
So I think efficiency drives me definitely,
Mhm.
and customer service, and customer service side of things, and service excellence definitely drives me too. Um, you know, Starting off, I had there are a couple of options, right? Initially, I was quite technical. I explored that avenue as well to say, should I be someone great at servers or networks or configuration? Something on that end. But automatically, I was more drawn into my passion was drawn into the customer client facing side of things, because I had a special way to speak to people. I was able to uh, speak to introverts and extroverts. I could differentiate the way I speak to people. Um, And overall, I think the passion for me was around that, and it still is, and throughout my roles. I mean, I've been in the law, as I said to you, I've been through about 3 or 4 firms now, and throughout that, I think my always key is how do I make something better, and that led me to have more and more opportunities. Yeah.
There along our careers, there are those key milestones that help kind of shape your focus, build your skill set. What, in your mind, were some of those key milestones that helped you shape your focus?
Getting my foot through to a global medic circle law firm. That was my career break, in fact. That basically I went there as a technician, soon became a manager, and then progressed there from manager to being a global service delivery lead, looking after operational teams. So that was that was where I learned. I learned about how to handle scenarios, how to manage managers, how to make sure something's delivered on time, working under pressure, and being a law firm, lawyers want things done yesterday, right? So you had to basically adopt and become a person who can be resilient. And then from there, I think I've done about 11 years at that firm. It was a great firm, and I got a call from an agent to work for interested in hiring me for another role. The best thing I say to people is, you actually don't know how much you know until you are challenged.
Yeah.
So when I went into this new firm, it was basically a global operations role. I was looking after EMEA, MENA, Americas, and Asia. So it was it needed my time. I had to be flexible on times, which meant I had to be available in the evenings as well. And this role was managing senior managers. So this was again something new to me because I had to adopt and learn quite quickly. So I went in there to apply the practices that I've learned, the processes I learned, getting to a really, really good start. And then the firm came under new management, which meant that the IT organization was being restructured, which meant that quite a few leaders were made redundant. And I was one of the lucky ones who was invited to be on the board to do the restructure. So, which again was a great opportunity for me, because sitting on the board with the CIO at that time, I learned how to restructure a department. What functions are needed. What functions are not needed. Some bad bits as well. We had to let go of people, which was the quite the hard things to do, and equally creating new sections and hiring new hires, etc. So that overall was a great kind of experience. I think that was probably my second, one of my biggest milestones as well, because if I hadn't taken the step, I would have never landed the role, and if I hadn't landed the role, I would have never had the experience on understanding how the firm works better, etc. Because that actually expanded my knowledge, and it has helped me quite a lot throughout my career. And then from there, as time went on, after a few months, the role I was doing was being moved to the Americas, which means my role became redundant. So that was a fearful scenario. You do that what if, don't you? Like, what if I had stayed in my old job? What if I had done that? What if I had done this, right? Because you want to make sure you're secure. So then I left. Well, when I left this firm, so I was pretty much trying to think, what do I do? At this time I had a lot of experience. I always had a thing for trying something out myself. I always thought, what if I become a consultant? I set up my own firm, which I did. I set up my own firm and thought, let me give it a go. Worked in a few places, just going in for 2-3 week contracts, just to consult and give ideas on how people can improve their current process and how they can be more efficient. My focus is more on efficiency, right? It's not all about headcount. You can basically get this equal or more with current headcount if you make sure your process are efficient. So I done that for a while, and then the current firm that I'm at the moment, RPC, came to light, and they were interviewing for a contractor, something similar to run the service delivery side of things, just to go in for a month, which I did. Went in, thoroughly enjoyed it. It's a great firm, great culture. And then it was lockdown. So lockdown was another challenge for me. So just prior to lockdown, I was offered a perm role, which I took, and I've been there since. I like to say I'm a leader, because I'm not somebody who just instructs. I like to lead from the front. And if something goes wrong, I wouldn't take the blame for my team. I don't necessarily sit back. If something's wrong, I like to roll my sleeves up and lead with the team. So that's kind of the leadership I learned from her. So that's been my biggest mentorship. Someone I still speak to, actually, if I need help, to reach out to. And equally, there's people I've seen where other leaders I've seen who are in great power, and thought to myself, I'm never going to be like that person, because that person, the way they lead is not the way you want to lead. Being obnoxious, or not giving someone the credit, or taking the credit for someone else's work, etc. So that, I think mentorship is a big thing. When I'm lucky enough to now mentor other people, and when I do mentor them, I talk from my own experiences, and try and drill in around the management side. Yes, you have to be firm, you have to be effective, and you have to be honest, and you have to be transparent when you give your feedbacks. But equally, you need to understand how to treat people, and understand scenarios, and really grow somebody in that level.
Yeah. So along the way, and we mentioned it a couple of times, is that luck plays a big part in what we do. I was lucky enough to find not only the new concept of digital employee experience, but Nextthink as well. It definitely shaped the latter part of my career. When did your interest in the specific, that concept of digital employee experience begin to take shape, and how has that guided your career path?
Sure. Yeah. Being in customer service, so I've always had a service head, as I was saying earlier on, and combining that with technology was something that it was something that was quite fascinating for me. Starting off, if you look at the BlackBerry times, when we used to roll out the BlackBerries, and ensuring that it's being configured correctly, making sure the emails are landing correctly, and small problems that come out, I want to make sure that they're addressed quite quickly, because the focus is to make sure that the experience that the user gets with that BlackBerry is seamless. So that's from a young age. So applying that across to my whole career. So my focus is purely on the end experience, right? What I think about is, if you look at a typical person, they wake up, they look at their phone, they check their emails, they'll do what they need to do, go downstairs or go upstairs, whatever. They log into their laptop. They, especially now with the home working, there's a lot of interaction between technology and an individual, and making sure that's smooth as possible. I remember working when I was working in my first law firm. We were rolling out Windows 7 desktops, right? And we had we didn't have someone training the users, right? Again, these are things that basically are questioned, to say, why do we not have somebody training? Because I think that enhances the experience that the person gets. So it's combining all that together. To be honest, even now, we're in a really state-of-the-art technology place, but there are still things that can be done to make it better. Like, I often look at the proactive side of things. How can you proactively fix things before someone notices it? And how can we proactively help somebody before they come to us? It's that kind of mentality. Yeah. So I think overall, it's been the service head. I guess having the service head has helped me, and still helping me to shape this in the future.
Fantastic, Midge. And looking now ahead to the future a bit more concretely, um, first of all, what about new technology? Which ones are you investing the most time and resources in presently?
So if in terms of what we're doing now, Tom, so we're looking at new laptops. Obviously Windows 10 is coming to not going to be supported from October, so we're rolling out Windows 11 together with some new laptops. So that's quite a big project that's going on at the moment within RPC. We're looking at a secure VPN solution, enhancing the way people work, making it more secure, especially with the digital experiences, and and the way things are going. In terms of the future, it's important to make sure that we have a secure way of working. So that's something that we're looking at. We're looking at AI, as per a lot of the other firms out there. We're looking to we're looking to building an internal system as a pilot, to see how that goes. And these are the main kind of things at the moment within us. Yeah.
This question might touch upon some of those, Midge, but what are the challenges that keep you most engaged and passionate about your work, both right now and presumably in the years to come?
Sure. I mean, look, service delivery is a game that you can plan but cannot plan, if that makes sense, because I plan my strategies weekly to monthly to half yearly. But if something happens where an operational issue is raised, then obviously we drop everything and we need to make sure we're focusing on that, and resuming service as quick as possible. So yeah, I mean, in terms of a passion, I mean, I'm highly motivated in terms of what I do. I mean, I actually love what I do. So for me, the passion side is quite easy. And also the teams I have, they're great teams. Individuals in my team, I want to make sure they're doing quite well. So trying to, making sure they're getting the right support, making sure that we have the right budget to achieve the projects that we want to achieve. Making sure that we are promising, or we're delivering what we're promising, and just improving. It's continuous improvement, isn't it? Like small things you can do to make things better. Focusing a lot around that. Being strategic as much as possible, but equally understanding that operations has to be something that we focus on more. So keeps us busy and challenged as well.
Yeah, love it. We covered quite a bit of ground there, Midge, but penultimate question for you how would you characterize the evolution of the IT career during the span of your own career? And where do you see it as heading next for the wider industry?
Well, okay, that's yeah. So IT is growing as an industry. I mean, it's the future. The future is going to be a lot more advanced. I mean, if you do a comparison from 10 years before to now, again, is a vast difference. So I think the job markets in the coming years is going to be more looking at things like AI, cyber securities. There's going to be a lot more involvement around the machine learning side of things. The AI side of things and machine learning things. I think that's going to be an industry that's going to be ever growing, with specialist skill people where people are needed to make sure it's being shaped the correct way. I think there's a big, massive growth there, and a great opportunity for people to learn there too. And if you look at cyber, I mean, cyber is another one, because the cyber crimes are a lot more sophisticated now. So we need more cyber analysts and people in that area to make sure that the firms are protected. So I think a lot more skill sets are going to be developing in there, and it's going to be a lot more focuses around that side of things. Data science is another one. I mean, if you look at data, pretty much all firms are focusing a lot more on data now, because if you understand data, then you can shape the organization's future and really have things in place to guard or to make things better. So a lot more data analysts are being, I think that's going to be a lot more focus on that side of things. Software, software development and engineering, that's going to be something that is going to grow. Robotics is another one, I think. I see so many programs around how robots are pretty much doing a lot of the human tasks that are being done. Like automation is going to be a big part of things. The repeated tasks are going to be automated, but equally, there still needs human interaction for certain things like checking, etc. And if you take a law firm, for example, like document reviews, right? Doesn't matter. You can have a lot of technology applied to that too. So I think, a lot of lots being done in that area, and I think overall the IT sector is looking quite promising and demanding, to be honest with you, and especially for the new people coming in. I think they'll be in a much better advanced position.
Incredible. And what about you, Midge? What are the remaining ambitions you have to achieve in your career?
I still got big dreams. still haven't given up on that yet. So I think I've learned a lot so far, gained a lot of experiences, and I want to apply this and become go into a CIO level at a firm. Not just be a technology partner, but be a business partner, being able to shape where the business is heading to. So that's one of the dreams. Going to consultancy, around that, really, really bringing in my experiences around the process-driven and technology-driven side and shaping that more. And I've also got this other passion, which I want to do some keynote speaking, like talk about my experiences, what I've learned, together with my own personal experiences, and encourage people to do better. Really motivate people and let them know that there's more that can be done, and if there's anything I can do to help them and motivate them and encourage them, then that's something I'd love to do as well, something I'm looking to at the moment.
Midge, I'm going to make a prediction on the record that you're going to go all the way to the top. I don't doubt it. And
Thank you.
That's where your journey will take you eventually. Absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Thanks for sharing that incredible personal story with us. And congratulations on all your success. And if people want to connect with you, I presume LinkedIn is a good place to
Yeah,
go.
absolutely. Yeah, LinkedIn. Yeah.
Phenomenal. Midge, been lovely to have you on the DEX Show. We'll speak to you very soon, my friend.
Thank you.
Thanks.
To make sure that you never miss an episode, subscribe to the show in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast player. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, make sure to leave a rating of the show. Just tap the number of stars you think the podcast deserves. If you'd like to learn more about how NextThink can help you improve your digital employee experience, head over to nextthink.com. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.